But there are times to where all the means and resources we have are insufficient, and the only thing that will help, guaranteed to help, guaranteed to bring change, guaranteed to transform a society, is.
Said I know you want
What's going on, my dear soul family? It's Dallas here, and welcome back to the channel. Got another verse for you today. Let's jump right into it. Romans 1:16, very popular verse. It says, "For I'm not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, first to the Jew and also to the Greek." All right, so what is the context of this all? We always got to get into the context. All right, so when we talk about um, Romans 1, or Romans altogether, the book of Romans, Paul, the Apostle Paul, is writing a letter to the saints who are at Rome. So Rome at this time is the capital and by far the largest city in the Roman Empire. It represented political power, cultural influence, and this was where a lot of the first century Christians lived. So he's writing to the saints that are there, the believers that are there, and Rome is known for its iniquity. One ancient philosopher described Rome as a cesspool of iniquity, and they were known for their pagan gods, their sexual immorality. It's a really dark place. Yet Paul is writing to the saints there, admonishing them and telling them how he's hearing about their faith all around the world and how their faith is like a beacon of light to people everywhere. And he gets to Romans 1:16, and he says, "I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it's the power of God." He describes the gospel as the power by which God uses to save us from wrath, and bring us into eternal salvation. And I just think it's so interesting that, we know that in societies, a lot of times when things get really bad, we try to find all the resources and the means to come in and clean up society, get things better. We start different initiatives, crime initiatives. We start different programs that would help out with like the sexual perversion or sexual crimes that's going on. We do all types of things. But there are times to where all the means and resources we have are insufficient, and the only thing that will help, guaranteed to bring change, guaranteed to transform a society, is the gospel. And Paul says, "This is what I'm prepared to preach. I'm prepared to proclaim this in this dark place, in this place known for its political power, for its cultural influence, for its pagan gods, for its cesspool of iniquity. I am ready to preach the gospel. And in fact, I'm not ashamed, because this is the power by which God uses to save and to bring about salvation." And I think that's, speaks for itself. It speaks without saying anything else. It's like, that is the solution. The gospel is the solution there. And, we can even relate that over to today, but there will always be people who don't want to hear it. That's all you got, then I don't want it. But there will be others whose heart resonates with the gospel, who are crying out silently deep on the inside for help, for salvation, for redemption, for deliverance, for change, for hope. And the gospel message will resonate with them, and they will become believers. And Paul knows that this is what this society needs. It's the same today. And just to simplify, I think it's important to know what is the gospel. And Paul shares this with the Corinthian church. So it's 1 Corinthians 15. I'm going to read verses 3 and 4. He says, "For I passed on to you as important what I also received." That, this is the gospel. It says that Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures, that he was buried, and that he was raised on the third day according to the scriptures. In simplicity, that is the gospel. The work of Christ, that he died, he was buried, and he rose on the third day. He died for our sins, and his work, his death, burial, and resurrection on our part, should I say, on our behalf, is the power that God uses to save. It is the hope for society. It is what we need in the darkest of hours. It's exactly what we need. And I think the question to ask now is, how do we respond to this truth? We respond to this truth by, for one, if we're unbelievers, believing on the gospel, right? Believing on Jesus, saving faith in him. All right. But if we are believers, we're to allow, if we're already believers, we're to allow this truth and this work of the gospel in our lives to be seen unto the world. As Paul said, it was being said all around the world about their faith. So we too are to allow this gospel to transform our lives, so that when others encounter us, when others are reaching out to us for help and hope and love, we are able to share this gospel. We are able to allow it to shine in and through us as a beacon of light to a society that is in need of it. And the best way we can do that is by sharing the gospel. Listen, as I always say, I hope I've encouraged you in some way, shape, or form. I hope that you can take something from this that will encourage you, that will enlighten you, that will point you back to Jesus. And always remember, no matter what you've experienced before, or even what you're facing right now, or maybe facing the future, always remember, there's hope.
You better find that rock, stand on it, be strong.